But I'll start by just describing Entrepreneurs Without Borders. That is celebrating 5 years. It's our 5th anniversary this year. It's actually our 5th anniversary today, because today, 5 years ago, I was... Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 5 years ago, I was on a TEDx stage, and I had this idea that I presented about what if we could not only open an innovation office that I'd helped work with before, and what I work as well now today, but what if we could start 100 innovation offices all over the world and connect them so they can share ideas, so we can not only go from the TED talk about ideas worth spreading to make it into ideas worth doing, and then actually moving ideas quickly through the world, so people that want to start something in their own community don't have to come up with something disruptive that nobody's ever thought of before, or based on technology that doesn't exist yet, but they can actually pick something up and they can get going from day one. Because what Entrepreneurs Without Borders is all about is actually, it's all about entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs create jobs and prosperity. Because we all know that true prosperity in a community comes from a number of people that go to work, do an honest day's work, they get an honest day's pay, and through that they can support, well, actually up to 5 people per paid person. So creating jobs is our #1 priority, because the need in the world today, I'll skip that. We've done a lot of things previously up to today, but the need in the world today is that we have never had, pre-COVID was bad enough, but with the pandemic, we've backed up at least 2 years on most UN goals. That's a fact. And we've never had a larger need for new jobs. And since we've missed out on 2 years on the UN SDGs, we also need to speed up towards them if we have any chance of reaching the 2030 goals, at least with some kind of completion. So Entrepreneurs Without Borders is fully focused on helping people create something in their community so they can help other people get into jobs as soon as possible. That's our whole thing. And we're basing it off something we call Entrepreneur 2030, which is a framework where we're basing it on the UN 17, the Sustainable Development Goals, other frameworks that have to do with ethical, running ethical businesses. And also there's a training part, there's a scaling part, and there's a funding part. So everybody out there, I want you to start thinking in the terms of, I want to be an entrepreneur 2030. I want to be a sustainably oriented entrepreneur. And I'll come back to that part very soon. In a nutshell, what EWB does, Entrepreneurs Without Borders, is that we pick potential scale-ups that already are SDG aligned. We match them with then local entrepreneurs. We apply a franchising and venture capital hybrid solution. So we find people, we help them with the setup, we help them with the funding, we train them through our programs, and then hopefully we can help spread good ideas faster than just the traditional way of expanding your business. We create value for a number of parties. We create values, of course, for the entrepreneurs. We create values for the original founders of the companies, because they get help. And we also create a lot of value for the investors, because they get already assessed and run through SDG-oriented solutions. So we're lowering the risk for impact investing as well. So why suddenly create a day called Sustainable Entrepreneurship Day? And that's a bit of what I want to talk to you about now. I wrote a blog post 2-3 years back that I called Redefining Entrepreneurship, because I strongly feel that we need to right some things where we've gone slightly wrong. One thing that I feel very strongly about is the narrative. The narrative that we have taught at least one, maybe 2 generations of entrepreneurs is that you bootstrap something as much as you can, you get some funding in as soon as you can, and then you run for the next funding and the next funding. And we celebrate the raising of another round. We don't celebrate them creating jobs. We don't celebrate them putting people into work. We don't celebrate them actually creating good jobs. We celebrate them if they raise a round and then they get lots of underpaid gig people to run the errands for them. That's what we celebrate. We're not celebrating solid, good businesses that employ people and give them good jobs to a decent salary and actually create prosperity in the community. So I'm saying that the narrative is kind of flawed when we're talking about entrepreneurship. And then the whole idea of make it big, get ultra rich as soon as you can, and then you can help the world with 1% of your fortune, which again isn't, there is no trickle down effect. The whole idea of some ultra rich helping the world with the 1% is not good enough. It's not big enough and it's not fast enough. We need to change the narrative of what entrepreneurship means when it comes to the core foundation of how we work as entrepreneurs. So the narrative is one thing of how we're working with entrepreneurship. And then, of course, the second thing is the whole idea of doing good. We have this, we have the rise of what we call the social entrepreneurship, which is, again, something that I feel very strongly about is, I won't say wrong, but I'll just say flawed, because people in a misguided sense of doing good call themselves social entrepreneurs and then mistake that for not having to make any money. That is a charity, that is a hobby, that is something else. That is not solid business. Sustainable business can sustain itself as through doing good business, as in making a profit. You don't have to be for profit, but you have to be, profitable and make your own money. Somebody has to pay for the office and the servers and everything else that you're doing. So again, that's a big part of it when it comes to, so we don't say at Entrepreneurs Without Borders, we don't say social entrepreneurship. We talk a lot more about sustainable entrepreneurship, because that is a much wider definition of it. The socially oriented part of it, of course, is there, but that's not the core of it. Another problem of the whole sort of social part is, and this is what I feel is the biggest problem of them all. We're suddenly saying to these social entrepreneurs that might be, 3-4% of all entrepreneurs in the world, that, okay, cool, go and save the world. And then the rest of us 97%, we don't have to do anything because you're doing the good jobs. That's never going to make it. We cannot put everything in the hands of these 3 to 5% of the so-called social entrepreneurs and then play around and have carte blanche on everything else that everybody else is doing. An analogy for you here is, if you can agree with me that seeing a crime and not doing anything about it is kind of as bad as committing the crime yourself, being the innocent bystander or, not doing anything about things. If you can agree upon that, that is kind of bad as well, then let's agree upon that not doing anything about what we need to do in the world as entrepreneurs. And, if you're just doing it for yourself and no other reason, that's also, if you're not doing good, then in a sense, you're doing bad. There's no middle ground here. And then you're going, yeah, but what if I'm not aiming for one of the goals? And what if I'm not trying to fix goal X, Y, Z? Well, then I'd say, then you've got the UN SDGs a bit wrong as well, because that's something we work a lot with. It's not about only trying to maybe fix one of the goals. The most important thing is not trying to break any of the others. So, it's not about always only doing good, but it's more about not doing bad. And that's the third thing about that we see a lot with when we work with the entrepreneurs that come into us. They have a very strong cause. They're very socially oriented. And then when we do a full SDG assessment, it turns out they're actually, walking around on one or two of the other goals on their way to fixing that one goal they were looking at. So you need to take a step back. You need to look at the whole map, and you need to think about it in a big holistic sustainability perspective. So with that, I will say it's time to redefine what we say of how we define entrepreneurship. We need to redefine it. And yes, we could say, let's say sustainable entrepreneurship instead of social entrepreneurship. That's a very, very good start. I, however, will push the limit here and I'll say, let's just say entrepreneurship. And let's say that all entrepreneurship should be sustainably oriented. It should be socially responsible. It should work with equality, and it should be for good. So, why not just have a vision for 2030 when no more companies are started that are directly bad for the planet or the people or whatever it could be? And let's just try and make every single attempt of doing something new into something that leads us into a better, more sustainable future. And that's why we've created a day to celebrate sustainable entrepreneurship. And that's why I feel so strongly about it, that I want to create a day that everybody can celebrate, where everybody can run events and everybody can help raise awareness of the importance of being sustainably oriented as an entrepreneur.